Hello, my name is Mercede Erfanian from the Bartlett School Institute of Environmental Design and Engineering, University College London. I am going to talk about our new study titled Psychological Wellbeing and Demographic Factors Can Mediate Soundscape, Pleasantness, and Eventfulness, a large sample study. This study is a part of Soundscape Indices project fully funded by the European Research Council, Horizon 2020, and University College London. I will kickstart my talk with a short introduction, then study questions, methods, results, and finally, what we concluded from the findings. Sound is a ubiquitous element in our daily lives. Despite a good deal of literature, it still strongly remains a center of attention of many scientific communities. Looking deeper at the evolution of sound-related research in the field of engineering, we see a considerable paradigm shift from noise mitigation to pleasant and restorative sound generation. This premise has been proposed with the hope to apply the existing environmental resources in order to provide a healthier and more comforting acoustic environment and ultimately better quality of life. Hence, the soundscape concept, which places the emphasis on the human perception of the acoustic environment in context, has emerged to support this premise. The soundscape entails two main perceptual attributes, pleasantness and eventfulness, that are different from the acoustic properties of the acoustic environment and by which the listeners appraise the quality of sounds. Soundscape pleasantness refers to the emotional magnitude of the sound perception, while soundscape eventfulness is attributed to the intensity of sound perception. The common model of representing soundscape is a bidimensional circumplex model with pleasantness on the x-axis and eventfulness on the y-axis, proposed by Axelson and colleagues. There are understudied secondary factors that may be linked to the perception of the acoustic environment, such as psychological well-being. Individuals with an aberrant psychological state and poor mental health may experience environmental inputs differently to those people who do not experience such issues, given that emotions as one of the core components of psychological well-being and sensory perceptions are closely intertwined. As reported in the relevant literature, the impact of psychological well-being is consistent among all perceptual modalities such as vision, tactile, olfactory, and auditory. The perception of acoustic environment or soundscape involves the sensation, identification, organization, and interpretation of ongoing, omnipresent auditory information. Soundscape does not always maintain consistency and show a huge variation among populations. There is evidence to suggest that the difference in the demographic characteristics like gender, age, and educational background may determine the way we perceive sounds. However, the results from the past studies have, for a good part, remained inconclusive or inconsistent. While previous research has substantially advanced our knowledge of the soundscape determinant, one, with respect to the demographic factors of the soundscape, there is inconsistent and insufficient consensus in the literature, and two, past studies results are predominantly limited to controlled lab-based experiments, and the impact of psychological well-being in the context of soundscape, by its current definition, has still largely been unexplored. To this end, in this large-scale study, we aim to explore the association of psychological well-being and demographic factors with soundscape among the member of publics with presumably no apparent psychopathology in an immersive environment. Furthermore, the ISO circumplex model has been adopted to better elucidate the outcome variables. Therefore, we raise two questions. First, if high levels of psychological well-being are associated with increased soundscape pleasantness and eventfulness, and two, if gender, age, ethnicity, education level, and occupation status are associated with the soundscape pleasantness and eventfulness. The present work is a large-scale study with data collected from the general member of public in several locations in London with varying acoustic features. Locations were selected which represented a variety of usage types, visual characters, and acoustic characteristics. We classify the locations in three groups of traffic dominant, nature dominant, and mixed locations with traffic related and natural sounds combined. The perceived effective quality, or PAQs, of the sound environment as adopted in the method A described in the ISO consisted of categories scales containing 5 response categories based on the Swedish Soundscape quality protocol. The participants judged the quality of the acoustic environment by 8 different adjectives of pleasant, chaotic, vibrant, uneventful, calm, annoying, eventful, or monotonous. WHO-5 Wellbeing Index was used to ask how individuals have been feeling over the last 2 weeks. The WHO-5 Wellbeing Index is known to be one of the most valid generic scales for quantifications of general psychological well-being. Demographic characteristics were presented such as age, gender, education level, occupation status, and ethnicity. Linear mixed effect models with random intercept and fixed slope using backward stepwise feature selection was utilized to first identify the association of our features of interest, including psychological well-being, age, gender, education level, ethnicity, and occupation, and their interaction terms with the soundscape pleasantness and eventfulness, and 2, accommodate associations within participants among locations. In order to account for latent differences in the pleasantness and eventfulness ratings of various locations, the intercepts of each model are allowed to vary as a function of the locations. Therefore, the model is constructed with 2 levels, or individual level for random effects, and the location level, or the fixed effects. Separate models were constructed for each pleasantness and eventfulness. The final models found that a higher level of psychological well-being and retirement were associated with higher pleasantness, while in individuals that preferred not to report their occupation, we saw a declined perceptual pleasantness. This was shown on the left plot. And on the right plot, we see the findings regarding the soundscape eventfulness. The results reveal that men and retired participants perceived the sound less eventful, whereas unemployed individuals seem to have higher perceptual eventfulness in response to sounds. Further analysis revealed that psychological well-being was negatively associated with eventfulness in men and individuals that did not report their occupations. The marginal and conditional R-score values are given for each model. In a mixed effect model, the marginal R-score represents the variance explained by the fixed effects or the individual level independent variables, while the conditional R-score represents the variance explained by both fixed and random effects. From the conditional R-score, we can say that the full model explains 35.4% and 18.1% of variance in pleasantness and eventfulness, respectively, while the majority of the variance is explained by location level differences, as confirmed by the interclass correlation coefficient. 3.5% of variance in pleasantness and 1.5% variance in eventfulness is explained by the features of interest as fixed effects. Now, what we concluded in this study. First of all, we collected data of 1,135 participants across 11 different locations in London. The first assumption of this study was if an increased level of psychological well-being was associated with increased pleasantness and decreased eventfulness assessment of the soundscape. And we found that an increased level of psychological well-being was associated with only increased pleasantness. And the second assumption was if the differences in soundscape assessment were associated with demographic features. And we found that retirees perceived sounds more pleasant, while individuals that did not prefer to report their occupation perceived sounds more unpleasant. Men and retirees perceived the sounds less eventful, whereas unemployed individuals seemed to have higher perceptual eventfulness in response to sounds. Further analysis revealed that psychological well-being was negatively associated with eventfulness in men and individuals that did not report their occupations. At the end of my talk, I also would like to thank my colleagues, Professor John Kang, the principal investigator of Soundscape Indices Project, Dr. Francesca Aletta, and Mr. Andrew Michel. Thank you for your attention.